Silent, swift, and honed by evolution, sharks are apex predators whose presence turns oceans into arenas of both beauty and terror. Revered and feared, these creatures strike with astonishing speed, often leaving only blood and questions in their wake. From a cinematic shoot gone wrong to a tragic intern's last dive, this series features 6 stories that explore the unpredictable world of shark attacks, ranging from chaotic mayhem to kite-flying carnage. The frigid waters off a coastal city in Namibia had always been notorious among local fishermen for their resident great white shark population. The Benguela Current brought nutrient-rich waters that attracted massive schools of sardines, which in turn drew the apex predators close to shore. On June 6, 2025, this natural phenomenon would collide catastrophically with human ambition when a Russian film production chose these waters as the backdrop for their high-budget thriller. Director Alexei Volkov had spent months scouting locations for his latest action film, seeking authenticity that computer-generated effects simply could not provide. The production company, Crimson Wave Studios, had obtained all necessary permits and hired local marine safety experts. But the allure of filming in genuine great white territory proved irresistible. The waters around a small island with a population of seals, cormorants, and other bird species just 12 kilometers from the mainland offered the perfect combination of dramatic coastline and predictable shark activity. The morning dawned overcast and bitterly cold, with water temperatures hovering around 14 degrees Celsius. Lead actors Dmitry Kozlov, a 32-year-old method actor known for performing his own stunts, and Svetlana Petrov, a 28-year-old former Olympic swimmer turned actress, prepared for what the script called the climactic ocean struggle scene. Both actors had undergone extensive water safety training, but neither had experience with predator-infested waters. The scene required Dmitry and Svetlana to portray survivors of a shipwreck, fighting exhaustion while clinging to debris approximately 200 meters from shore. 3 support boats formed a protective triangle around the filming area, with safety divers positioned underwater and marine biologist Dr. Heinrich Müller monitoring shark activity through hydrophones and underwater cameras. Dr. Müller had expressed concerns about elevated shark activity that morning, noting that his monitoring equipment had detected multiple large signatures in the vicinity. The production team acknowledged his warnings but decided to proceed, citing tight scheduling constraints and weather forecasts predicting worse conditions in the coming days. At precisely 10:47 a.m., cameras began rolling as Dmitry and Svetlana entered the water. The scene called for them to appear exhausted and desperate, struggling against each other for a piece of floating debris. Both actors wore full wetsuits, but their movements and splashing inevitably created the surface disturbance patterns that great whites associate with wounded marine mammals. For the first 12 minutes, filming proceeded smoothly. Dmitry and Svetlana performed their choreographed struggle with convincing desperation, while underwater cameras captured dramatic angles from below. The crew remained vigilant, scanning the water through binoculars and monitoring Dr. Müller's equipment, which showed normal readings. The attack began without warning at 10:59 a.m. A massive great white shark, later estimated at over 5 meters in length, erupted from the depths directly beneath the actors. Security cameras from multiple boats later revealed that the predator had been stalking them from below for at least 3 minutes, rising slowly from the deeper waters beyond the monitoring zone. The shark struck Dmitry first, its powerful jaws clamping down on his left thigh with devastating force. The actor's screams pierced the morning air as the predator's serrated teeth tore through his wetsuit and deep into muscle tissue. The impact dragged him underwater, his struggles sending violent splashes across the surface as blood began clouding the water around them. Svetlana, initially frozen by shock, attempted to swim away but found herself directly in the shark's path as it thrashed with Dmitry in its grip. The great white's head swung sideways, its jaws snapping shut on her right forearm. She later reported feeling the crushing pressure of teeth grinding against bone before adrenaline blocked out the pain entirely. The safety team sprang into action within seconds of the initial strike. Boat engines roared to life as crew members began shouting and banging metal objects against the hulls, attempting to create noise that might discourage the shark from continuing its attack. Safety diver Marcus van der Merwe, positioned 30 meters away, began swimming frantically toward the scene while radioing for immediate medical evacuation. The shark maintained its grip on both actors for approximately 45 seconds, shaking them with the violent head movements typical of great white feeding behavior. Dmitry later described the sensation as being caught in a massive vice that threatened to snap his leg entirely. Svetlana fought back instinctively, punching at the shark's snout and gill slits until her wetsuit glove tore away completely. The combined noise from the boats and the actors' violent struggles eventually caused the great white to release its grip and disappear back into the depths. Both victims were hauled aboard the nearest support vessel within minutes, leaving trails of blood in the water that continued to attract the shark's attention long after their rescue. Dmitry had sustained deep lacerations to his left thigh, with damage to major muscle groups, but fortunately, no arterial bleeding. Svetlana's forearm showed puncture wounds from multiple teeth, with one tooth fragment remaining embedded near her wrist. Both actors remained conscious throughout their rescue, though Svetlana went into mild shock from blood loss. Emergency medical helicopters arrived within 25 minutes, transporting both victims to a hospital where trauma surgeons worked for hours to repair the damage. Dmitry required extensive muscle reconstruction and would walk with a permanent limp, while Svetlana faced months of physical therapy to regain full use of her arm. The attack stands as one of the most significant great white encounters in history, serving as a stark reminder that nature's most efficient predators cannot be controlled or predicted, no matter how much humans prepare or rely on technology. The islands, located 27 miles off the coast of San Francisco, had gained a reputation as the Red Triangle among marine biologists and shark researchers. These rocky outcrops served as breeding grounds for northern elephant seals and harbor seals, creating an abundant food source that attracted the largest concentration of great white sharks along the Pacific coast. In September 2019, this natural predator-prey relationship would nearly claim the life of wildlife photographer Matt Kerensky. Matt, a 34-year-old freelance photographer from Portland, Oregon, had spent the better part of 5 years documenting marine wildlife behavior. His work involved capturing intimate moments between apex predators and their prey. The assignment that brought him to the islands promised to be his most ambitious yet, photographing great white sharks during their peak feeding season, using revolutionary underwater camera technology. The research vessel Neptune's Dream had been chartered specifically for this expedition, equipped with state-of-the-art hydrophones, underwater cameras, and most importantly, a realistic seal-shaped decoy system designed to attract sharks for close-range photography. The decoy, crafted from high-density foam and covered in seal skin texture, could be towed behind the boat at variable speeds to mimic wounded prey behavior. Dr. Sarah Chen, the expedition's marine biologist, had initially expressed reservations about the decoy system. Her research indicated that September represented peak hunting season for adult great whites, with water temperatures and seal populations creating optimal feeding conditions. However, Matt's insurance company had approved the methodology, and his previous work with similar techniques in South Africa had yielded spectacular results without incident. The morning of September 23rd found Neptune's Dream anchored in the channel, with visibility extending nearly 40 feet underwater. Calm seas and moderate swells created perfect conditions for photography. Matt positioned himself on the boat's portside pontoon, his camera equipment secured with safety lines, and his wetsuit providing protection against the 58-degree water temperature. The decoy deployment began at 8:15 a.m., with the foam seal being towed approximately 50 meters behind the vessel at depths varying between 5 and 15 feet. Matt's underwater cameras, mounted on extendable arms, captured the decoy's realistic movement patterns as it mimicked an injured seal's erratic swimming behavior. Initial results proved encouraging, with several smaller sharks investigating the decoy from a distance. Matt documented blue sharks and a single mako shark approaching within 20 feet of the artificial prey. But the massive great whites that the islands were famous for remained elusive during the morning hours. At 11:43 a.m., the expedition's luck changed dramatically. Hydrophone recordings detected the distinctive low-frequency sounds associated with large predator movement, and underwater cameras revealed a massive shadow approaching from the depths. Matt positioned himself as far forward on the pontoon as safety protocols allowed. His camera equipment extended into the water to capture what promised to be extraordinary footage. The great white shark that emerged from the depths measured an estimated 3.5 meters in length, its scarred hide and massive girth indicating an adult female in peak condition. The predator approached the decoy with the calculated precision that had made great whites the ocean's most efficient hunters, circling twice before positioning itself for an attack run. Matt focused intently on his camera viewfinder, adjusting exposure settings to compensate for the changing light conditions as the shark prepared to breach. His concentration on capturing the perfect shot caused him to lean farther over the pontoon's edge than standard safety protocols recommended, his silhouette creating a shadow pattern on the water surface that resembled prey behavior. The attack occurred with terrifying speed at 11:47 a.m. Instead of targeting the intended decoy, the great white surged upward toward Matt's extended position. Its massive head broke the surface directly beneath him, jaws agape and displaying rows of serrated teeth, each measuring over 2 inches in length. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on Matt's right forearm with crushing force, the impact pulling him partially over the pontoon's edge and into the water. He later described the sensation as being caught in a mechanical press, with the shark's teeth penetrating through his wetsuit and deep into muscle tissue. The predator's weight, combined with its thrashing motion, threatened to drag him completely overboard. Matt's screams alerted the crew immediately. Though the attack's duration lasted only 8 seconds, the shark released its grip as suddenly as it had struck, apparently recognizing that its prey differed significantly from expected seal characteristics. Blood immediately began clouding the water around the boat as Matt was hauled back aboard by expedition members. Dr. Chen and the boat's first aid specialist worked frantically to control the bleeding from multiple puncture wounds along Matt's forearm. The shark's teeth had missed major arteries, but had severed several tendons and caused extensive muscle damage. Emergency bandages and a makeshift tourniquet fashioned from camera straps helped stabilize his condition during the 40-minute journey back to mainland emergency services. Coast Guard helicopters met the Neptune's Dream and transported Matt to a trauma center, where surgeons spent 6 hours repairing tendon damage and removing embedded tooth fragments. The attack resulted in partial loss of grip strength in his right hand, effectively ending his career as a handheld wildlife photographer. The incident led to revised safety protocols for seal decoy photography, including mandatory safety harnesses and increased distance requirements between photographers and active hunting zones. Matt eventually transitioned to remote camera operation, continuing his wildlife documentation career while serving as a cautionary example of how quickly calculated risks could transform into life-threatening encounters with nature's most formidable predators. Gansbaai, South Africa, positioned along the country's southern coast, had established itself as the global epicenter for great white shark research by 2017. Leila Dubois arrived in Gansbaai during the austral summer of January 2017, her acceptance into the Institute's competitive internship program representing the culmination of years of academic dedication at a university in Paris. At 22 years old, she possessed the idealistic fervor common among her generation of marine biologists, convinced that proper research and conservation efforts could resolve the growing tensions between human development and marine ecosystem preservation. The Institute's research station occupied a converted warehouse overlooking the harbor, its walls lined with tracking equipment, specimen storage facilities, and the massive steel cages used for underwater observation missions. Dr. James Whitmore, the program's British director, had built the facility's reputation through 2 decades of groundbreaking research, though recent budget constraints had forced compromises that would prove catastrophic. Leila's initial weeks involved standard research assistant duties, data entry, equipment maintenance, and classroom instruction on great white behavior patterns. Her enthusiasm impressed the senior staff, particularly her willingness to volunteer for additional responsibilities that other interns avoided. She demonstrated particular interest in the cage diving operations that formed the backbone of the Institute's tagging research. The observation cages, constructed from reinforced steel bars and designed to protect researchers during close-range shark encounters, required constant maintenance due to saltwater corrosion and the tremendous forces exerted by investigating sharks. However, budget cuts had delayed scheduled maintenance on several units, with repairs being postponed until the end of the research season to minimize operational disruptions. On February 18, 2017, the Institute prepared for its most high-profile research mission of the season. A documentary crew had arrived to film great white tagging operations for an upcoming conservation special, bringing international attention to the program's work. The presence of media cameras created additional pressure to demonstrate successful shark encounters, leading to decisions that prioritized spectacle over safety protocols. Dr. Whitmore assigned Layla to the observation cage for the filming, recognizing that her photogenic appearance and articulate explanations would enhance the documentary's appeal to younger audiences. The decision represented a significant honor for an intern with only 3 weeks of experience, though several senior researchers privately questioned the wisdom of placing an inexperienced volunteer in such a prominent role. The research vessel Southern Cross departed Gansbai Harbor at dawn, carrying the crew, institute staff, and 3 observation cages toward the prime research area near Dyer Island. Water conditions appeared ideal, with moderate swells and visibility extending beyond 30 feet underwater. Early hydrophone readings indicated multiple large shark signatures in the target area, promising excellent footage opportunities. Cage preparation began immediately upon reaching the research site, with each unit being lowered into position and secured with multiple safety lines. The cage assigned to Layla showed visible signs of wear, including corroded welds along the door frame and several bent bars from previous shark encounters. However, time constraints and the presence of filming crews prevented thorough safety inspections that might have revealed critical structural weaknesses. At 10:30 a.m., chumming operations commenced to attract sharks to the filming area. The mixture of fish blood, oil, and chopped bait created an expanding slick that would draw great whites from considerable distances. Within 45 minutes, the first predators appeared, 2 adult great whites measuring over 4 meters in length, their powerful forms cutting through the water with predatory grace. Layla entered her assigned cage at 11:15 a.m., her excitement evident despite the professional demeanor she maintained for the cameras. Her underwater communications equipment functioned properly, allowing surface observers to monitor her observations as the great whites began investigating the cage structures with increasing boldness. The attack occurred at 11:32 a.m. with shocking suddenness. The largest great white, estimated at nearly 5 meters in length, launched itself at Layla's cage with tremendous force, its massive body slamming into the structure with enough impact to buckle the corroded doorframe. The faulty latch, weakened by months of deferred maintenance, gave way completely under the assault. The cage door swung open, leaving Layla exposed to the massive predator now thrashing within the confined space. Her screams, transmitted clearly through the communication system, alerted surface observers to the catastrophic equipment failure. The great white's powerful jaws closed around her torso, its serrated teeth inflicting fatal injuries within seconds of the initial contact. Dr. Whitmore and the dive safety team attempted immediate rescue operations, but the shark's aggressive behavior and the compromised cage structure prevented effective intervention. Emergency ascent procedures brought Layla to the surface within 3 minutes of the attack, but her injuries proved beyond the capabilities of onboard medical equipment. The footage, showing the moments leading up to and including the fatal attack, became crucial evidence in subsequent investigations. The recordings revealed multiple safety violations and equipment deficiencies that the Institute had been aware of but had chosen to ignore, due to budget constraints and operational pressures. Layla's personal journal, discovered during the investigation, contained detailed entries expressing growing concerns about safety standards and ethical compromises within the Institute's operations. Her final entry, written the evening before the fatal dive, questioned whether the program's pursuit of dramatic footage had begun to overshadow its scientific mission. The tragedy resulted in comprehensive reviews of cage diving safety protocols throughout South Africa's marine research community. Dr. Whitmore resigned his position amid revelations about deferred maintenance and cost-cutting measures that had compromised participant safety. The Marine Conservation Organization faced criminal negligence charges and ultimately ceased operations in 2018. Layla's death served as a sobering reminder that youthful idealism and institutional prestige could not substitute for rigorous safety standards when confronting nature's most formidable predators. Her sacrifice led to enhanced regulations governing marine research internships and mandatory equipment inspection protocols that continue protecting young researchers pursuing careers in marine conservation. Recife, the vibrant capital of Pernambuco state in northeastern Brazil, had earned the unfortunate distinction of recording one of the world's highest shark attack rates by 2014. It was against this backdrop that 15-year-old Rafael Monteiro pursued his passion for kite flying, unaware that his innocent hobby would nearly cost him his life. Rafael lived in the sprawling favela of Brasilia Teimosa, a densely packed community that had grown organically along Recife's southern shoreline. His family's modest concrete block house sat 3 streets back from the beach, close enough that he could hear the constant crash of Atlantic waves against the reef formations that gave the city its name. Despite the neighborhood's poverty and reputation for violence, Rafael found solace in the simple joy of flying elaborate kites along the water's edge. The art of kite making had been passed down through generations in Rafael's family, with his grandfather teaching him to construct complex designs using bamboo frames, tissue paper, and carefully balanced tail configurations. Rafael's kites were renowned throughout the favela for their size and stability, some measuring over 2 meters in wingspan and capable of reaching heights that made them visible from several kilometers away. A festival held in June 2014 provided the perfect opportunity for Rafael to debut his latest creation, a massive diamond-shaped kite decorated with traditional Brazilian patterns and equipped with LED lights for evening flights. The festival atmosphere drew thousands of residents to the beaches, creating a carnival-like environment that temporarily masked the underlying dangers of Recife's waters. Boa Viagem Beach, where Rafael chose to launch his festival kite, stretched for several kilometers along the city's modern district. The wide sandy expanse and consistent trade winds made it ideal for kite flying, though warning signs posted every few hundred meters advised against swimming due to elevated shark activity. The beach's popularity during festival season meant that hundreds of people would be in and around the water, increasing the likelihood of negative encounters with marine predators. On the afternoon of June 24th, Rafael arrived at his usual kite flying spot near the Boa Viagem Pier, carrying his festival masterpiece and a small toolkit for field adjustments. The wind conditions appeared perfect, with steady 15-knot breezes coming directly off the ocean. Festival crowds had already begun gathering, with families setting up beach umbrellas and vendors preparing for the evening celebrations. The first launch attempt from the dry sand failed, when the kite's oversized frame caught in a crosswind and crashed into nearby palm trees. Frustrated but determined, Rafael decided to wade into the shallow water where he could achieve better wind alignment and avoid terrestrial obstacles. This decision would prove nearly fatal, as recent illegal fishing activities in the area had attracted bull sharks closer to shore than usual. Unknown to Rafael and other beachgoers, local fishermen had been illegally dumping fish waste and using prohibited nets in the shallow waters off Boa Viagem Beach. These practices created artificial feeding opportunities that drew bull sharks, known for their aggressive nature and tolerance for shallow water, into areas normally considered safe for human activity. At approximately 4:30 p.m., Rafael waded knee-deep into the surf, his attention focused entirely on positioning his large kite for optimal wind capture. The festival atmosphere around him included music, laughter, and the general chaos of celebration, masking any warning signs that might have indicated danger in the water around him. As Rafael maneuvered deeper into the water to avoid submerged debris, his feet became tangled in discarded fishing line and plastic waste that had accumulated along the bottom. His attempts to free himself involved considerable splashing and erratic movement, creating the surface disturbance patterns that bull sharks associate with wounded prey animals. The attack began at 4:34 p.m. when a bull shark, estimated at approximately 2.5 meters in length, struck Rafael's left thigh with devastating force. The predator's powerful jaws clamped down through his shorts and deep into muscle tissue, the impact knocking him completely off balance and sending him crashing face first into the water. Raphael's screams pierced the festival atmosphere as the shark's serrated teeth ground against his femur bone, the predator's characteristic head-shaking behavior threatening to sever his leg completely. Blood immediately began clouding the water around the attack site, while panicked beachgoers scrambled to exit the surf and alert emergency services. Lifeguard Marcos Silva, stationed at Tower Number 12, approximately 200 meters from the attack site, heard Raphael's screams and immediately began running toward the emergency. His training and shark attack response proved crucial, as he arrived at the scene within 90 seconds, carrying a rescue board and emergency medical supplies. Silva's rescue attempt involved repeatedly striking the bull shark's snout and gill slits with the fiberglass rescue board, a technique specifically designed to discourage shark attacks without causing permanent harm to the animal. The impacts, combined with Raphael's continued struggles, eventually caused the predator to release its grip and disappear back into deeper water. The rescue operation that followed demonstrated the efficiency of Recife's emergency response system, developed specifically to handle the city's frequent shark encounters. Raphael was dragged from the water within minutes of the attack, with Silva applying direct pressure to the wound while calling for immediate medical evacuation. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, finding Raphael conscious but in severe shock from blood loss and trauma. The shark's bite had caused extensive damage to his quadriceps muscle and had narrowly missed the femoral artery, an injury that would have proven fatal within minutes. Emergency tourniquets and fluids stabilized his condition during the 15-minute ambulance ride to a trauma center. Surgical intervention required 6 hours to repair the extensive muscle damage and remove embedded tooth fragments from Raphael's thigh. Orthopedic surgeons successfully reattached severed tendons, though permanent nerve damage left him with limited mobility in his left leg and chronic pain that would affect him for years. The attack investigation revealed the extent of illegal fishing activities that had contributed to increased shark presence in the area. Environmental authorities launched a crackdown on unauthorized fishing practices, while beach safety officials implemented additional warning systems and increased lifeguard coverage during festival periods. Raphael's recovery proved lengthy and challenging, requiring months of physical therapy and psychological counseling to address trauma-related anxiety. Despite the physical and emotional toll, Raphael eventually returned to kite flying, though he never again ventured into the water during his flights. His experience became part of local folklore, serving as a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers that lurked beneath Recife's deceptively beautiful waters, and the importance of respecting the ocean's most formidable predators. The Red Sea's crystalline waters had sustained Egypt's coastal communities for millennia, but by 2021, illegal shark finning operations threatened to destroy the delicate marine ecosystem that supported both tourism and traditional fishing livelihoods. Omar Sharif Mahmoud, a 36-year-old freediving instructor from Hurghada, had dedicated his life to combating these destructive practices through direct action that often placed him in mortal danger. Omar's passion for marine conservation had developed during his childhood in the fishing village of Safaga, where his grandfather had taught him to dive using traditional pearl diving techniques passed down through generations of Red Sea fishermen. His exceptional lung capacity and underwater endurance made him one of Egypt's most skilled freedivers, capable of reaching depths exceeding 50 meters on a single breath. The formation of the Red Sea Rescue in 2019 provided Omar with a platform to channel his conservation efforts into organized resistance against illegal fishing operations. The group's activities included documenting violations, removing abandoned fishing gear, and occasionally conducting direct interference with boats engaged in shark finning activities. These operations carried significant legal and physical risks, as the criminal organizations behind shark finning often responded violently to interference. Intelligence gathered throughout 2021 indicated that a major shark finning operation was scheduled for the new moon period in November, when minimal lighting would provide cover for illegal activities. The operation, believed to be organized by a syndicate with connections to Asian shark fin markets, planned to deploy massive gill nets in the protected waters approximately 60 kilometers from Hurghada. Omar's team had spent weeks preparing for the intervention, studying weather patterns, identifying escape routes, and coordinating with sympathetic fishing boat captains who would provide transportation to the remote location. The mission involved cutting nets and freeing trapped sharks before the finning boats could harvest their catch, a dangerous undertaking that required precise timing and exceptional underwater skills. The assault team consisted of 4 experienced divers, with Omar serving as the primary line cutter due to his superior breath-holding ability and familiarity with shark behavior. Each team member carried specialized diving knives, emergency flotation devices, and underwater communication equipment for coordinating the complex operation in complete darkness. Departure from Hurghada occurred at 2 a.m. aboard a modified fishing vessel skippered by Captain Youssef, a veteran fisherman whose own livelihood had been devastated by illegal fishing operations. The journey to the islands required 3 hours of navigation through increasingly rough seas, with the team using the travel time to review emergency procedures and equipment checks. Arrival at the target site revealed the full scope of the illegal operation. 3 large fishing vessels had deployed gill nets spanning over 2 kilometers, creating a massive underwater trap designed to capture sharks and other large marine life. Underwater reconnaissance indicated that numerous sharks were already entangled in the nets, with some showing signs of distress that suggested they had been trapped for several hours. Omar's portion of the mission involved cutting the deepest section of the net array, located at a depth of 40 meters, where the largest sharks were typically caught. The operation required multiple breath-hold dives in complete darkness, with Omar relying on waterproof cutting tools and handheld lights to navigate the treacherous underwater environment. The first 3 dives proceeded successfully, with Omar managing to free 2 hammerhead sharks and a large reef shark from the entangling nets. However, the cutting process inevitably released blood into the water from sharks that had been injured during their capture, creating chemical signals that would attract other predators to the area. On his 4th dive, Omar encountered a calm patch of water away from the tangled nets before he began his work. Working methodically in the absolute darkness 40 meters below the surface, Omar began cutting through the heavy nylon lines that bound the tiger shark. His handheld light revealed the predator's distinctive striped pattern and powerful build, but also indicated that the shark was becoming increasingly agitated as the cutting process progressed. The shark's struggles had wrapped additional netting around its body, requiring extensive cutting work that would keep Omar underwater for the maximum duration of his breath-holding capacity. Suddenly, a massive tiger shark emerged from the shadows, not the one he was trying to set free. The ambush left him no time for warning. The attack began at 3:47 a.m., approximately 90 seconds into Omar's dive. As he worked, the hidden tiger shark from the shadows suddenly attacked with explosive force, its massive jaws closing around Omar's torso with crushing pressure. The shark's serrated teeth, each measuring over 3 inches in length, penetrated deep into his chest and abdomen, causing massive internal injuries. Omar's training in shark behavior had taught him to remain calm during aggressive encounters. But the severity of his injuries and the need to reach the surface for air created a desperate situation. His dive partner, Khaled Hassan, heard panicked underwater splashes, and joined by the other 2 divers dove desperately to pull him free. But the shark's power was overwhelming. The shark brought Omar deeper into the water, and their cutting attempts were thwarted by the enormous force of the tiger shark's thrashing. The predator's characteristic thrashing behavior caused additional trauma, as it shook Omar violently while maintaining its grip on his torso. The attack lasted approximately 30 seconds, during which Omar's blood created an expanding cloud in the water that would later attract additional predators to the area. Hours later, Khaled's team located Omar's lifeless body tangled in a torn section of netting roughly 20 meters below the surface. His emergency flotation device, damaged during the attack, had torn away, leaving his body to drift slowly toward the ocean floor. His wounds were too severe for any field treatment. The emergency ascent that followed violated standard decompression protocols, but represented the only chance of bringing his body back to the surface. Despite immediate medical attention from the team's first aid specialist and radio consultation with emergency physicians in Hurghada, Omar's injuries proved fatal. Omar Sharif Mahmoud's body was brought aboard the rescue vessel at dawn. His family was notified, and his funeral took place according to Islamic tradition later that day in Safaga. Though he passed hours earlier during the deep water ambush, his official time of death was marked at 4:23 a.m., once his body reached the surface. His death galvanized international attention on the illegal shark finning trade and led to enhanced enforcement efforts throughout the Red Sea region. The mission's success in documenting and disrupting the illegal fishing operation provided evidence that led to arrests and prosecutions of several syndicate members. However, Omar's sacrifice highlighted the deadly risks faced by grassroots conservationists who confronted powerful criminal organizations with minimal resources and support. The Red Sea Rescue continued their work following Omar's death, though subsequent operations employed safer protocols that reduced direct contact with dangerous marine life. Omar's legacy lived on through expanded legal protections for Red Sea sharks and increased international funding for conservation enforcement programs. The remote coastline of Queensland's Cape York Peninsula represented some of Australia's most pristine and dangerous surfing territory by 2022. Emily had discovered surfing during her university years, where her engineering studies provided the analytical mindset that helped her quickly master wave riding techniques. Her profession designing offshore oil platforms required extensive travel to remote locations, and she often extended business trips to explore local surf breaks that most recreational surfers would never attempt to reach. The Cape York expedition in August 2022 represented months of planning, with Emily and 3 friends organizing a 2-week camping and surfing adventure to Queensland's most isolated beaches. The group had secured permits for camping in protected areas and equipped their expedition vehicle with emergency communication equipment, medical supplies, and provisions for extended wilderness travel. The break they discovered on August 14th, approximately 40 kilometers north of the area, offered perfect conditions. Consistent 4-foot waves breaking over shallow coral reef, offshore winds, and water temperatures warm enough to surf without wetsuits. The location's remoteness meant they were likely the first surfers to ride these waves, a privilege that came with inherent risks of being hours from emergency medical assistance. Emily's surfboard was a custom-shaped 68 inches thruster, designed specifically for reef breaks, with a narrow outline and sharp rails that provided exceptional performance in hollow waves but offered minimal flotation for emergency situations. Her decision to surf with this board would prove significant when she encountered a great white shark, which reduced her primary safety equipment to debris. The morning session began at dawn, with Emily and her companions enjoying 2 hours of perfect waves with no other surfers in sight. Water clarity extended beyond 20 meters, revealing intricate coral formations below and providing excellent visibility for spotting marine life. However, this same clarity would later allow Emily to witness every detail of the attack that nearly cost her life. At approximately 8:30 a.m., Emily was positioned 100 meters from shore, waiting for the next set while sitting astride her surfboard. Water depth measured roughly 4 meters, with coral formations providing habitat for fish species that formed the base of the local food chain. Unknown to Emily, this ecosystem also supported occasional visits from great white sharks following migrating prey species. The first indication of danger came as a strange disturbance in the water directly beneath her surfboard. Emily later described seeing a large shadow moving purposefully through the coral formations, its size and movement pattern unlike anything she had previously encountered during years of surfing in Australian waters. The great white shark that emerged from the depths measured nearly 4 meters in length, its massive bulk and distinctive triangular fin immediately identifiable as one of the ocean's apex predators. The shark's approach showed calculated precision that had made great whites such efficient hunters, rising from deeper water with increasing speed as it homed in on Emily's position. The attack began at 8:33 a.m. with explosive violence that shattered Emily's surfboard and launched her sideways into the water. The great white's massive head struck the board's nose section with tremendous force, its jaws closing around the fiberglass and foam construction with enough pressure to snap the board completely in half. Splinters of fiberglass and foam erupted from the impact point as Emily was thrown from her board into churning water. The shark's momentum carried it partially above the surface, revealing its massive size and rows of serrated teeth that had just destroyed her primary flotation device. Before Emily could fully process what was happening, the great white's jaws closed around her right calf with bone-crushing force. The shark's teeth, each measuring over 2 inches in length, penetrated through her skin and deep into muscle tissue, creating multiple puncture wounds that immediately began bleeding profusely. The sensation, Emily later reported, felt like being caught in a mechanical vise lined with razor blades, with the shark's powerful jaw muscles exerting pressure that threatened to snap her leg bones entirely. The predator's characteristic head-shaking behavior intensified the damage, tearing flesh and muscle as it maintained its grip for approximately 6 seconds. Emily's screams alerted her surfing companions, Marcus Reed and Sarah Thompson, who were positioned roughly 50 meters away when the attack occurred. Both surfers immediately began paddling toward the emergency, though their ability to provide assistance was limited by the continued presence of the massive predator. The great white released its grip on Emily's leg as suddenly as it had attacked, disappearing back into the depths with the same efficient movement that had characterized its initial approach. The shark's behavior suggested a classic case of mistaken identity, with Emily's surfboard silhouette triggering the predatory response before sensory feedback indicated she was not suitable prey. Left floating in increasingly bloody water with her surfboard destroyed, Emily faced the immediate challenge of reaching safety while suffering from significant blood loss and potential shock. The jagged remains of her surfboard provided minimal flotation, forcing her to rely on her swimming ability, compromised by her injured leg. Marcus Reed reached Emily within 2 minutes of the attack, finding her conscious but struggling to stay afloat due to blood loss and the severity of her leg wounds. His assessment revealed multiple deep puncture wounds along her calf, with several of the shark's teeth having penetrated to the bone and caused extensive muscle damage. The rescue operation required careful coordination between the 3 surfers, with Sarah Thompson using her surfboard leash as a makeshift tourniquet, while Marcus supported Emily's weight during the swim to shore. The shallow coral reef that had created perfect surfing conditions now presented additional hazards, as the injured woman needed to be carefully navigated through sharp coral formations without causing additional trauma. Reaching the beach represented only the first phase of a complex emergency response, as the group's remote location meant professional medical assistance was hours away by vehicle travel over rough terrain. Marcus's wilderness first aid training proved crucial in stabilizing Emily's condition, while Sarah prepared their satellite communication device to summon emergency evacuation. Emergency evacuation by helicopter required nearly 3 hours to coordinate due to the remote location and limited landing options near the beach. During this waiting period, Emily's companions maintained constant monitoring of her vital signs while using their limited medical supplies to prevent infection and maintain body temperature. The flight to a hospital provided Emily with advanced trauma care, including fluid replacement and pain management during the 40-minute journey. Emergency physicians had been alerted to prepare for shark attack trauma, ensuring appropriate surgical teams were ready upon her arrival. Surgical repair of Emily's injuries required 8 hours of complex reconstructive work to repair severed muscles, remove embedded tooth fragments, and restore circulation to damaged tissue. The shark's bite had narrowly missed major arteries and nerves, though permanent scarring and reduced calf muscle function would affect her mobility permanently. Emily's recovery involved months of physical therapy and psychological counseling to address both the physical trauma and emotional impact of surviving such a violent encounter. Her return to surfing came gradually, with initial sessions limited to small waves at crowded beaches where lifeguard services provided additional safety assurance.